Hey, it's Andrew with the Above Average Investor. Today we're up in beautiful Whitefish, Montana, doing a book review, some of the highlights on The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This is Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness. Excellent book on personal finance and investing. Today we're covering one of the topics in the book, getting wealthy versus staying wealthy, and how those are two totally different skills to have. We're going to tell this lesson through a couple of stories. Born in 1877, Jesse Livermore was worth $100 million by the age of 30. He was pretty smart. He was pretty good at getting wealthy. The Great Depression, which many of us have heard about in 1929 and 1930, he was a big investor at that time. And October of 1929, there was Black Monday, Black Tuesday, and Black Thursday, one of the biggest drops in the stock market history. He was so bold, he shorted the US stock market right before then. He made $3 billion in one day in 1929, if you can imagine, inflation adjusted. So he was overflowing with confidence. He bet bigger and bigger. Eventually in 1933, so only 4 years later, he lost everything betting so big, and he ended up taking his own life that he just couldn't live with himself. So great at getting wealthy, bad at staying wealthy. Billionaire in the times of the Great Depression when everyone else in the country was struggling to just get by. Getting money, maintaining wealth are two different skills. The Forbes 400 list has a 20% turnover rate every decade that has nothing to do with death or transferring of wealth to a family member. They just straight up lost it, which you just can't imagine with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, how you could live on a relatively safe investment income from that, and you get greedy and lose it all. So growing wealth, it takes optimism, it takes risk taking, a lot of hard work, a lot of putting yourself out there. A lot of it's just time until you and Lady Luck can meet one another, cross paths, and you've got to stay in the game long enough to get lucky. Staying wealthy, on the other hand, is a totally different skill. Compounding works. It works wonders if you give it years and decades to take place. Just like growing an oak tree. 1 year, the growth is arguably negligible. 10 years, it can be impressive. And after 50 years, it can be extraordinary. So if you want to grow the biggest oak tree, you don't move it around in different areas of dirt from rainstorm to sunny weather. You just plant it there, you give it sunshine and rain for 50 years straight and more or less just leave it alone. Don't dig it up and move it to a little sunnier side of the mountain that season, stuff like that. One reason Warren Buffett is known as a big investor to many people. One of the reasons he's become so wealthy is just time in the game. He started investing at age 10 and he's in his 90s now. He's invested for over 80 years. He's went through 14 recessions. Can you imagine? The 2008 recession happened 14 times in a row and never selling. He didn't take on debt. He didn't quit or retire, even though he definitely has the means to quit and retire. It's just time in the saddle, and that's why he's such a good investor. He has a survival mindset. He has paranoia and frugality, which are two of the biggest traits on just genuine survival in anything, including finance. One encouragement there to stay wealthy is just build financial security. And if you have a big enough emergency fund to cover all possible storms, you can't lose. And if you play a game that you can't lose by default after enough time, eventually you will just win. And that's how investing will work too. If you just slowly add to your pot forever, the only option is for it to grow really large. You have to be optimistic about the future, but paranoid about potential roadblocks and things that are going to take you off the path. You have to have sensible optimism, belief that the odds are in your favor. You'll have to balance a good outcome with guaranteed misery on the path. The stock market will go up and down, that's a fact. Your real estate investments, you'll make poor investments, but as long as over half the time you win and you stay in the game, you can't lose. Compound interest is very, very high gains over really long periods of time, while it's a complete basket case in the short run. And that's not intuitive to most people, but that's just the reality of how investing works. One negative example is Rihanna. She was worth, I think, hundreds of millions of dollars. She nearly went bankrupt and sued her financial advisor for not telling her she couldn't spend all of her money. And a quote from her financial advisor in court, "Was it really necessary to tell her that if you spend money on things, you will end up with the things and not the money anymore?" So take that life lesson. Those are two different skills on how to get wealthy and stay wealthy. So many of us, it's intuitive on how to make income, how to gain wealth, but how to keep it for generations is a totally different skill set. So highly encourage you to check out this book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And thanks for the few minutes for the review. Bye.